Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jay Waller joining you from the Tahoe Keys with Mr. Rolo Tomasi, Sterling Cooper, where I've been assigned the duty of hosting today's show and a big famoose. So,
Your duty.
here we are. So, the topic of this kind of happened 2 days ago. We're walking through the woods and we're talking about all the information out there and how excited, angry people get over the information, whether they're red pill, blue pill, black pill, whatever, then all the meanings. And we kind of came to a conclusion at one point is, what do you really want is choice. You want to get the information, and then you need to take that information and use it in your life. But most importantly, you want choice in your own life, because that's freedom. And that kind of came from something that you and I were talking about. And I just wondered if you had anything to speak to about that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of. Oh my God. Thank you. I will have this. I'm not sure how this works. My whole, I don't want to say mantra, but the thing I've been sort of focusing on for 2021 is I keep asking guys on my own show is, what do you want? Like, why are you doing this? Like, why do you want to be red pill aware? Why do you want to learn why do you want to learn game? Why do you want to learn finances? Whatever your sort of, red pill sphere is, I guess. Why are you doing that? Because we talked about this before, which is, you begin with the ending in mind. I don't think a lot of guys do that. I think they just have sort of this immediate problem, and they just want to figure out how to solve that one immediate problem right then and there. And essentially, what's coming down to is they want to be able to have the choice of, of women, of money, of the life that they want to use or live, I guess, and I have a chapter in my first book, and it's called Truth to Power. And I think this is where we were going with this. It was to have, like, the real definition of power is not so much like being able to sort of rule over someone or lord over someone, but to have the choice to do with your life what you want to do. The control, the amount of direction that you have over your life. Sometimes that might mean, having people help you out and do things. It's not that necessarily that you're lording over them. Maybe that's part of your psychology, but that's not really the true definition of power. The real definition of power is to be able to have control over your own life. And what are the limitations on that? And a lot of people right now have a lot of limitations on the amount of control and the degree of what it is that they can do. And they're looking for answers. They're looking for, like, the means so that they can really find some new sense of control over what it is that they want to do. And it's not so much like, I think there needs to be a distinction between, like, say, purpose and being able to have, options and control over what it is that you want to do with your life. But also the means, like, how do you get from point A to point B? And that's why I was talking about, like, beginning with the ending in mind. Like, what do you want to do with all of this? Like, if there's no purpose to it, why even bother with it?
I want to speak to that. There's the thing that gets a lot of guys into this space in the first place, right, is a breakup.
Yes.
Is some kind of traumatic heartbreak. And I'm sure you've had emails from guys saying, how do I get my girlfriend back?
That's the first thing. That's
right?
The most
That's
common.
the first thing they'll ask.
The most common thing.
I want to add to that is they're trying to get rid of that pain. And that pain comes from, like, that sense of loss. They've lost their girlfriend. They've lost their sexual options. They've gone from 1 to 0, right? So what they come thinking they want to get their girlfriend back, but what they actually want, like you said, is options, it's abundance, it's choice, right? And there's a saying in, like, the survival community, right? If you have one, you have none. If you have 3, you have 1. If you got, like, 1 jug of water, you got no water. If you got 3 jugs of water, you got 1 jug of water. The same applies with women. If you got 1, you got none. If you got 3, you got 1. It's about having that abundance and that options and that backup, like the backup, and that gives you the power. It's a case of the hungry don't get fed, unfortunately, in the women thing, because the guy who has only one option will make compromises, reasons why she's special, why she's the perfect woman for him. He'll make excuses for her shitty behavior, because he doesn't. In the back of his head, he knows, if I lose this one, I'm out. I got nothing. I got to go back to square one. I got to do all the hard work of tracking a woman again. But the guy who is spinning plates, he can. If one woman gives him attitude, he's going to hold his ground. He's not going to compromise his values. He's not going to compromise, tolerate shitty behavior, right? Which ironically, well, not ironically, but makes him more attracted to her in the first place, and that carries on to other women in his stable. It all comes down to that. That idea of abundance.
I would say that's true in almost every category in life. That's absolutely true in business.
Yeah.
You want to have multiple customers and multiple employees. That way, if one employee goes one way, you can say, hey, man, hit the road. I got another one. Or if a client doesn't want to meet you in the middle, or there's some situation, you can go to the next client. I think it's way more than women. I think it's almost in every category of life. So the question is, how do you get in that abundance?
And that's really what I think a lot. That's really what I think a lot of guys are coming into this sphere for, at least in my my side of things, intersexual dynamics. There's a principle in my first book that's called the cardinal rule of relationships, and it's a person in any relationship, the person with the most power is the one who needs the other one the least. How do you get into that position? You have to be in a position of abundance, not a position of scarcity. So when people come at me and they say, well, Rollo talks about plate theory and non-exclusivity and having lots of girls, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not so you can screw anything on two legs. It's that you have that options, you have that abundance mentality, like you were saying before. If you've got three, you've got one, right? That's really what that boils down to. And are you having sex with every single one of them? You don't have to. If that's not your, whatever your convictions are, it doesn't have to, but you should have those options. You should still have that on your speed dial. You should still be dating non-exclusively for a good long time until you can figure out what it is that you want, and you're in a position of selectivity so that you can figure out what it is that you want to have in the first place. And that's really what plate theory in essence really is.
There's something that you say all the time in regards to business. And you say, like, when your business is growing, right? Most people focus on getting in more customers, and they forget the sales. They forget the recruiting part of like hiring more team members. And you say this all the time, and that's what allows a business to grow and be in abundance, because you can fire a customer or you can fire an employee if either one of them aren't living up to the standards that you need them to live up to grow the business. Same in vetting women in your circle, in your plates. Same with vetting your plates to eventually maybe find the one that, okay, this girl I want to take seriously. She's earned the position of queen because she ticks the boxes I want her to tick, and she's shown loyalty, and the fact that you have abundance when you're selecting that probably contributes significantly to getting her in line and getting her behaving in a way that's conducive to a longer, healthier relationship between the two of you in the first place.
So with those things in mind, knowing that you should have abundance and that you're actually aware of this information at this point, and now you have choice to choose what to do with it, is really the next thing. And I feel like some guys vary on how they want to take the information and use it. What advice could you give a young guy if he's not quite sure how he wants to take the information that's out there and actually apply it to his life?
I mean, the first thing I'd say is I'd still quote from our friend Myron Gaines. And say, always be sourcing. He says, he preaches that all the time, and I completely agree. Like, the moment you stop, and I notice it in my life, the moment I take my kind of, you don't have to put your foot fully on the pedal, but just, as we're single, okay, we're jumping around on Hinge or Bumble or whatever. Okay, we're just constantly having a little drip feed of potential new sources. I mean, new women in our rotation coming in, just to keep that going. I don't necessarily have to spend like hours a day on it every single day, but just a little bit every week. Okay, it's drip feeding in. Now, you might not be fantastic at like a dating app game or whatever your strength is. Maybe you go out to bars and clubs. Maybe you jump on Instagram. Maybe you have a social circle set up to engineer that for you. Whatever it is, just make sure there's some drip feed coming in constantly. There's some leads always coming in the funnel.
Irons in the fire.
Yeah.
I always say it's really hard to negotiate when you don't have any options. It's a really hard place to negotiate from, because you can bluff and try to play poker all you want, but I really feel like people can genuinely feel it coming off of you when you're full of shit and you don't have any choices. And so they call you. So that's a very dangerous place to be in regards to especially frame, because I think abundance makes frame a whole lot easier.
Well, yeah, and then the other thing, like what you were just saying a minute ago, as far as options is concerned, a lot of guys, and you'll hear women say this too, is like, I want a guy who's confident. I want confidence. And so I think a lot of like sort of positivity gurus always want to say, you know, you got to dig down deep into your soul and find that inner confidence and inner self-belief, and they turn it into this real metaphysical kind of spiritual dynamic. And honestly, I think that's kind of bullshit, because
Yeah, I agree.
confidence comes from options. It comes from developing those options. You're far more confident in negotiating a raise with your boss if you've already got another job lined up. It's the same thing and that comes from abundance, right? It comes from developing, like having irons in the fire, having those options. If I've got 3 girls and I'm dating a 4th one, and if it doesn't work out with her, in the back of your head, even if it's just sort of this, you know, subconscious understanding, I got 3 other girls that I can, or I know that I've done this in the past and I can do this again successfully. So you know, whether your attitude with that girl, your attitude with that business, your attitude with that person, whatever, is going to be, you're going to manifest behaviors, and you're going to manifest sort of this confidence just basically from knowing that you have other options. And again, that comes from understanding abundance rather than living in a sense of scarcity. And you were saying before, most guys live in a state of scarcity because after a while, if you live in that for long enough and you realize that you're sort of living hand to mouth, and I mean that like figuratively, when you do that, it starts to work on your personality. It starts to work on the way that you think about things. And again, this is not a you know, get up and go kind of. I'm not a motivational speaker whatsoever, as you know, but it's just simple pragmatism. You have to have irons in the fire. You have to have other options. You will be in a much better position to decide what it is you want and the choices you want to make and the power you have over your life if you live in a state of abundance. And again, having those options is how you get to confidence. That's why guys who seem really cocky, it's not that they're arrogant so much as it is that they realize that if this doesn't work out, I've got other things going on that I can spend my time on. So it's not so much about like you know, focusing on one thing. As you were saying before in the beginning here, it's like most guys, they think that if they lose that one girl, that it's all over for. She's the hottest girl I've ever got, or she's the first one to spread her legs for me, or whatever else. That's because you don't have any options, and you're not confident. And she picks up on your unconfidence, for lack of a better word, because you don't have those options. And what's funny is when you're in that state, if you're with that girl and suddenly you get in shape, suddenly you win the lottery, right? In whatever way, shape, or form, right? Then you'll notice that there are behavioral shifts, behavioral manifestations in yourself that come from the knowledge that you now have this money in the bank. You now have a better body because you've been at the gym. You now have something else that's going on for you, and people pick up on that, and they will react to you and deal with you in a way that is reflective of their picking up on the fact that this is a guy with options. You don't have to, a rich man doesn't have to tell you he's rich. He just simply, the way he looks, the way he talks, the way he acts, you can tell that guy has options. That's the difference between a confident guy and an unconfident guy.
I agree with that, and I think that's also the reason why it's so important to do the work. That same boss that wants to either not give you that raise or give you that raise, you should go in knowing that you have an upper hand in that conversation because you have acquired the skill set to be of value to him. And people directly treat you how you train them to treat you, and that value genuinely comes from what you create for yourself and you know for yourself.
You know what they?
That's why the work's so important.
You know what they say about like guys will say this all the time. It's like when a woman like is monkey branching, like she doesn't, you know, let go of the other branch until she gets to the other one. Guys do that all the time too. They just like we focus on women when it's like, oh, she's hypergamous and so she's got a better option, and so she's one branch to the other branch. Make sure, if I had anything to tell guys as advice or life advice, like we were saying before, is don't be a monkey brancher. The guys who are monkey branching are the guys who don't have options. They're like, okay, I've got this branch and now I got to let go of this branch. It's one to the next. You should have 10 branches to grab onto after you let go of that other one. That's the difference between monkey branching and having those options that will provide you with confidence.
I want to ask you guys, what for younger guys who haven't developed the options, who haven't developed that competence to have the confidence, what do you have to say then about the concept of fake it till you make it in regards to women and business?
I think it's important. I think it's important to treat yourself the way that you want to be treated, right? I mean, it's like treat yourself like a king if you want other people to treat you like a king. So as far as fake it till you make it, I'm all about that. Like, I think a lot of guys want to say that, well, you got to be authentic first, and you got to do the work, and you got to do all that stuff. That's fine, and I'm not saying don't do that. You should, but you should also start reconsidering the way that you think about yourself while you're doing the work. At the same time you're doing the work, you say, you know what? I'm worth it now. I'm getting to the point where I can command respect instead of trying to demand respect. There's a difference between those two, and I think that at the same time that you are sort of learning the game and you're learning how to interact with people, because when you're faking it, you're also learning skills at the time that you're faking it. You know what I mean? So if you're putting yourself out there and you are going to clubs, you're learning game, and I'm referring to the stuff that I'm familiar with, but like if you're out there and you're learning this stuff and you're putting yourself out there, then you're learning skills at the same time that you're doing that. I'm not saying you be sure that you make it, like make sure that you actually develop the skills and you actually have the irons in the fire authentically. But when you're starting out, it's like when you have a job, right? And you want to get this particular job, but you don't have the experience to qualify for that job, but you can't get the experience unless you have the job. It's the same thing. It's like your story when you were talking about how you kept going back and back and back to for your first job, and finally the guy says, you know what, I'm going to give you a shot at it, right? And so you just show up, and again, there's other ways to sort of learn those skills and to develop other irons in the fire. Again, figuratively speaking, but you've got to have the guts to go out there and do it, like enter into action with boldness, I think is what Robert Greene calls it in 48 Laws of Power. You have to put yourself out there. Royce used to call it irrational self-confidence. You've got to be able to put yourself out there and be able to take one on the chin while you're faking it, because people are going to call you on your bullshit. I mean, let's be honest, they're going to call you on your bullshit at some point, but you're going to have to get to the point where that's not going to affect you. And then also, when you take it on the chin for faking it, that's going to teach you something along the way. So later on, you've developed these skills that are part of sort of putting yourself into what it is that you want to do. Like when I first started playing in the Hollywood metal scene back in like 89, 1989 or 88, 89, somewhere around there. It's not like I go up there and I go, well, I'm a pro. I've been doing this for forever. Like here I am, like 21, 22 years old. I'm faking it till I make it, but be sure that you do make it. Make sure that you're committed to what it is that you want to do. A lot of guys who are out there who simply don't, you can tell they're too young, or they don't have the experience, or they're uneducated. They really want it. They have that drive and that fire to get to it, but they don't have the experience. But sometimes it's that fire and that's that drive that really sort of sees them through till they get to making it.
Absolutely.
I agree.
The idea of like having faith in the process, because it shit ain't gonna happen overnight. Like you're not gonna snap your fingers, like read a book, like take a seminar, and then immediately the next day you're gonna have all the women in the world or whatever, all the money in the world, or you're gonna be jacked and ripped overnight. This doesn't happen. That's not life. You gotta have the faith in the process to put the work in every single day. The persistence, because you're gonna get the test of a man is like how comfortable is he in the uncomfortable, and how willing is he to like get back up again every single time. Like, like a guy's ability to take rejection is like a really good measure of a man. Like, can he walk up to a woman, like say something stupid, get completely shut down and laugh about it afterwards with his mates? I think that's a fantastic measure for like if you're taking the whole getting better with women thing seriously. If you've got a healthy approach to it, you should be able to go out and get rejected and laugh about it afterwards, and not get all butt hurt and like depressed. Like, oh, I'm never gonna get good at this. I'm not seeing results today. I went and talked to one woman and she didn't marry me. Like, put the work in. Get used to it. It's building a muscle. It's like a reflex.
I agree. I think you should expect to fail. I tell people all the time when they ask me, well, what did it take? I say, well, look, man, I was either too dumb or too tough to quit, because you're gonna fail. You got to commit to failing in a lot of ways.
So we're playing guitar. Exactly the same process as playing guitar, right? You screw up chords all the time learning how to play guitar.
And look, to be all honest, to be completely honest, to circle back to your question, I think there's a line between, healthy confidence and narcissism. And to his credit, there's no way he could have gotten on that stage, even if he was a bit young, without hours in his bedroom practicing chords. There's no way about it. Right.
And wanting, like, this is what I'm going to do when I get there. Yeah.
Right.
You have to love it. The other thing is, like, I think that a lot of guys don't realize is that there is a real value in persistence and consistency. Like you were saying before, you don't just go to the gym once and get jacked going once. I've heard guys say, well, you know, when it comes to game or whatever, you have to go spam approaches, and it's a numbers. Myron's talked about this before, where it's like, you know, it's a numbers game. You got to keep, you know, working your sources, and I do 100% agree with that. But you have to go out there and you have to make approaches, and you have to put yourself out there, and you have to be willing to risk rejection. And most guys get a little, you know, especially the last couple of generations, are very uncomfortable with that. But my approach has always been this: is that it's consistency. If you go out and you make an approach once every Friday for a year, that would be 52 approaches, okay? Once a week for a year. That's 52 approaches. You don't have to hit like 10 girls in the same club. You do one approach every Friday with a new girl. That's 52. That is more approaches than most guys will do in a lifetime.
Absolutely.
And you will learn something from each one of those approaches. And that's really the key to it, is persistence. Old school PUAs used to have these games where guys would go out and they would try to get shot down. They would get them accustomed to that rejection. That was the game. How many rejections can you get in a night?
That's what me and my buddies used to do it. And I used to go up, like, I'd start the night out and I'd go up if we were playing that game, my opener would be, "Hi, my name is Sterling. I have HIV and I'm legally required to tell you this." I want to get as rejected as quickly as I possibly can immediately, because I found that hilarious. And they would always be like, "What?" The girl wouldn't know how to respond to it, but I'm laughing in my head.
Would you ask for a number right after that?
Oh, I got shot down every time. But that was the point. The whole point was that I started to associate, like, laughter and positive emotions with the rejection. And that's like a cheat code, is like finding a way to, like, hack your own brain so that you enjoy the process, you enjoy the uncomfortable parts. Like, same with, like,
You're attaching a different emotion to it.
yeah. Same with getting in the gym. Like, when people are starting out with the gym, they're kind of like, you know, it's work and it hurts and all this sort of stuff. But once you start getting addicted to the pain, or addicted to the work and the endorphin rush, and seeing those weights stack up and get bigger and bigger, your ego gets involved in it. It starts getting fun.
You know, another thing I like to do, about once or twice a week, I make sure, and this is a man or a woman, to give a random person a compliment.
That's great.
With nothing, I want nothing for it. In fact, I did it the other day. I told her, there was a lady, she was older, but I walked up to her and I said, I don't want any, you know, I didn't say I didn't want anything, but I said, "You look really pretty today," and I walked the fuck out. And what's good about that is, a lot of times it's your expectation and your fear that's actually stopping you from doing the approach or talking to a girl you like. So it's very disarming to yourself to say, "I'm just going to walk up to said human, give them a compliment with looking for nothing in return. They can't reject me because I don't want anything," and then just walk away.
And it makes you feel great about yourself.
Oh, dude.
It's a dopamine rush, because their face lights up and they're like, "Wait, you don't want anything from me? You genuinely think I look pretty?" Or even, I mean, if you tell a guy he's got cool shoes or whatever it is, and it's completely like above board, "Hey, just want to tell you," and you made somebody's day, and yeah, you feel absolutely great after you do something like that. It's a good way to, like, it's almost like training wheels to walk up to somebody.
There used to be like, when I was on way back in the day, a long time ago, when I was on the SOSWAB boards, when I was a moderator on the SOSWAB forums, there was a series of posts that they collected together, and they called it sort of like the DJ Bible, which was like sort of the Don Juan Bible, like how to learn game, how to, like, give us some practice, some practical applications of, like, how to learn, how to change into, like, how to actually interact, learn these social skills. One of those was, like, similar to what you're saying, is like give a random person a compliment. The other is making eye contact with complete strangers. Like, and not like, you know, weirdly looking at you kind of thing. It's like making eye contact with the people that you're talking to. And I never really realized just how significant that can be, because a lot of people don't do that. They won't look at you just simply because it's confrontation. They don't want to have that confrontation with them. But that was one. Or walking down the street with your, instead of like walking over hunched over, your posture and stuff. And those seem like really stupid, like fake it till you make it kind of stuff. But collected over time, it's kind of like Mr. Miyagi and, wax on, wax off. And then finally, because you've learned that sort of muscle and that motor control, that when you're actually learning karate or whatever, that you can actually put that into your head because you've already got the muscle memory that's going on there. That's really what that is to build that kind of stuff up. And people only focus on wax on, wax off, and they go, oh, game is sucked. All it is just simple parlor tricks and stupid shit, right? Whereas if you're learning those things, then over time you build upon those skills until you become something a little bit more than what you are. But all of this goes nowhere until you decide that you want to become somebody that you're not. Until you decide that you want to become something that if you are somebody right now that you don't want to be, you have to make a conscious decision to say, you know what? I want to be something else. And I think that a lot of what we hear today, just sort of in popular society, is that your personality is fixed, your life is fixed, you're just a loser, you're going to stay that way, or people want to make you predictable. They don't want you're trying to be something you're not. That's why when people say, what do you think about fake it till you make it? The first thing anybody who knows you when you're trying to develop skills or become something else, the first thing they'll go, why are you trying to be somebody you're not, man? It's like the crabs in the barrel thing where everybody's trying to pull you back in.
And I said, I just did a video on that. And I said suppression is generally wrapped in love. People are like, oh, well, you've changed. Well, fucking, I hope so.
I hope so, yeah.
Because when is enough enough? Never. So what do you have to do? You have to grow. So
That should be one of the biggest compliments you ever received in your life.
Yeah.
Is you've changed.
You've changed.
They're trying to use it as a shaming tactic,
Right.
but you should take it as a goddamn compliment because it means you're actually doing something with your life.
You're a jerk now. Good.
Yeah. And oftentimes it's them seeing a reflection of something in you that they have not done for themselves, and it's very, very threatening to them. And it doesn't make them a bad person. And in fact, most times I feel like people don't even know they're doing it. I mean, sometimes they do, sometimes it's bad, but sometimes I feel like people are scared for you to do things they were themselves scared to do. Yeah. And so I do believe suppression is often wrapped in love.
Like one of the, when I was studying psychology, it's mostly behavioral psychology, but I also had personality studies. And one of the things that you will understand if you really kind of understand personality, the big 5 traits and all that other stuff, is that you're not going to be the same person that you are right now that you will be like 2 years from now, 3 years from now. At least if you can make the conscious decision to decide who I want to be rather than who other people are trying to mold me into, or who my outside influences are trying to get me to be. There's always going to be outside influences, but if you're the one that actually gets to make that decision for yourself, it's so much the better. But most people won't even give themselves permission to do that because they don't believe that it's possible. I'm just whatever MBTI letters that I am, Myers-Briggs. I'm an INTJ or whatever like that, and I'm never going to change. Or I'm an Aries and I'm a Leo or whatever. And it's like once you start boxing yourself into those things, you will always be stuck in that particular way of thinking.
I have a real big bone to pick with that.
Personality types?
Well, even look, maybe I don't really maybe there is evidence behind the personality type thing. Cool. But,
I think it's very useful.
For gaming girls. Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. Or the whole love languages.
I use it with employees a lot.
The whole love languages thing is great with gaming girls. But for your own personal psychology, putting labels on yourself and people are doing it these days. People do it as, oh, I'm depressed, or I have ADHD, or all they put all these labels on themselves, which really screw with your own head, and they screw with your ability to actually break out of that box, do things, exit your comfort zone, achieve new things, grow as a person, because you're gaslighting yourself. You've labeled, you put yourself in this little corner where, oh, I can't do that, that's not me. I can't do this thing, that's not the kind of guy I am. The language you use to yourself, and I notice this living with you, man, the language you use is very deliberate, and it's very positive. And that's something I think most guys could really, really learn from, is you have a saying you say all the time, I can't have a bad day. Whenever somebody asks you, how you doing? Yeah. Right? Which is a great reframe in your head. I think I heard someone else suggest one earlier this year, which was, if someone asked you how to have a good day, I started saying, I'm unstoppable. Yep. Another really positive framework. Right. So think about, rather than being the kind of guy who says, oh, I'm no good with girls, right? Mm-hmm. Or I can't get chicks, well, what could you reframe that into to be a positive mental framework for you moving forward, right? To help you change.
I'm the man with women. They're finding out every day. or whatever it is, right? Yeah.
If you want to, if you're a kid in high school right now and you say, you know what, I want to be a rock star, right? There's rock stars out there that had to say that at some point in their lives. They go, you know what, I'm going to be a rock star. I read the autobiography of Paul Stanley from Kiss, and that's exactly what he's like. I'm going to be a rock star. And of course, all his counselors and everybody goes, okay, have something to fall back. And he's like, nope, I'm going to be a rock star. At some point, he had to go from like nerdy kid with like a deformed ear and everything. Had to go from that to being Paul Stanley, who I just saw, by the way, a couple of weeks ago in Reno. And it's like, this guy is like, he's pushing 70 right now, and has this great long career. I always use Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead. I won't use him in this example, but he has this long history of being a rock star, really from the late 60s, mid 70s, all the way up to here we are in 2021, and he's doing it at 68 years old, something like that. But it all came down to one decision. I want to be a rock star. I want to do this. I want to do that. And that's what I think really when we talk about choice and we talk about personality, you get to decide who you want to be. And you are you're the director of, wherever your life is going to go. And yes, are you going to have setbacks? Do you have difficulties? Are there things that are going to limit you from some things that you can or cannot do, right? Yeah, of course there are. But you've got to be able to say, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. That's what it comes down to when I keep talking about power. Power is your ability, your control over the direction of your own life. Are there going to be things that direct that or frame that? Yes, there are. But you're the one that gets to decide who you want to be. You get to decide what your personality is going to be. And when people tell you you're trying to be somebody that you're not, you're trying to be you're a poser, right? You're acting in a way that is unlike you. You're not going against your nature, right? When people tell you that, the reason why they're telling you that is because they want you to stay predictable. Because predictability is comforting for people. They want you to stay the same old guy that you've always been, and okay, whole schlubby me, right? You get to decide whether you want to be that guy or you get to be a rock star. You want to be that guy or you want to be a bodybuilder. You get to that guy or whatever it is. You are the one who get to decide what your personality is, and no one else does. And if you don't think personality is changeable, ask any guy who's gone out on deployment to an active combat zone and come back with PTSD. His personality has changed. He didn't get to change it. He was molded by his situations, by the things that happened to him during that time. But his personality has changed as a result of that. And there are things, and I'm not saying it's this extreme, but there are events and there are things in crisis and trauma, like you're saying, well, I got to get my girlfriend back, that are going to change your outlook on the way things are, way things look for you. So when we talk about like unplugging from the matrix or going from your blue pill ways to your red pill ways, there's probably some catalyst, some kind of trauma or crisis that made you get to the point where you questioned everything about like yourself or the direction you were going. And it's at that point that you got to say, I get to decide who I want to be. I get to decide where my personality is going to go.
It's really important.
That's as close to motivation as I get.
Right. Right. But if you look at it in a very literal sense, I always say guard the gates of your mind. Well, that starts with how you talk to yourself. And when you start talking to yourself in a way that allows you to be more confident, all of a sudden you do start standing up straight. All of a sudden you do start respecting yourself more. And people directly treat you in the same way you treat yourself in a lot of ways. You teach people, you train people how to treat you. And so when you're talking to yourself in the right way and you're doing that work and you're progressing, you'll slowly watch people do it in almost the same fashion. So being able to step outside of yourself and really pay attention to how you speak to yourself and the things that you say, like, I can't have a bad day. Or what was it that you say all the time?
I'm unstoppable.
Yeah, you're unstoppable. You say that enough times and you'll find that it becomes quite easy to be unstoppable, especially in your mind, because then when the problem or the issue comes up, because you're unstoppable, you either run it the fuck over or you go around it or you go over it. I mean, do you believe that's been true for you?
Yeah, it definitely works. Because there's other mantras you'll say all the time with different, like stuff I would have used in my porn career and stuff, like prior to going to set, like, right. Shit, you little shit, you mind fuck yourself with.
I can't imagine what that might have been, Sterling.
We'll keep it PG for all.
Yeah, we'll do that. Right. But and another thing on what Rolo was saying is, you know, once you do decide and you know you're in the right place, you probably need to go ahead and burn the boat.
Yeah.
That's a really important thing.
We talked about that. When we were in Hope Valley. It's death ground strategy is what it is. It's sometimes the best plan A is not to have a plan B, and put yourself into difficult situations where you have to succeed. You know, succeed or die kind of thing. I mean that figuratively, but like you have to put yourself into positions where it's so difficult that you have to either succeed at this or you're going to fail at this and completely, you know, move on to whatever else that you have. But you can't. I think a lot of guys want to give themselves an out. They want to have a backup plan. They want to. Like you. Why are I forget what the stats are, but I think it's like a third of men between the ages of like 25 and like 40 or something right now are living with their parents right now. And that might be financial. That might be it might be your financial prospects. It might be whatever. But again, you get to decide who you want to be. Would you rather live like that, or would you rather live in another way? And maybe you need to not give yourself an out. Maybe you need to not have a safety net so that you can succeed, to force yourself into succeeding.
I'll tell you what, a little quick not having an out story. I remember when I came to America and I first got into the adult entertainment industry, I landed in LA and I had $12 in the world across like 3 bank accounts in 3 different countries. I had $12 left to my name, and I'd very much had burnt the boats, and 2 days later I had a booking and my career took off from there.
You know, one of my favorite things about that story with you, because we've talked about this, is, and the reason I bring it up is a lot of guys think it's either too late or it's too far along. But how long ago was that, Sterling?
That was like 4 years ago.
Boom.
At the age of 29, 30.
Right.
I completely changed my life.
How different is your life today?
Spectacular. It's unstoppable.
Unstoppable is exactly what I was going to say.
I take it you have more than $12 in your pocket.
Yeah.
A little bit more than $12 in my pocket.
Yeah, I'll take $12 from you right now. So,
I know how much you wanted the crap tables last night.
Yeah. We got all lucky at the crap table last night. It was a good time. So,
Fuck your rules, I've got asthma.
I've got asthma. So
That's actually a good topic, by the way. I'm just sort of on a side note there is I didn't become an author until a real, published author until 2013, and I was in my 40s when I did that. I'm 53 right now. I just published my 4th book in January of this year, and I'm working on a 5th right now. I never in my life said, hey, I'm going to be an author. I never thought about that until the first book, The Rational Male, took off, and I go, well, people really want to hear what I have to say. And I think people have asked me this before, how did you become an author? How did you become, successful at being an author? And I'm like, well, you have to get over one thing, which is you have to give yourself permission to do that thing. I want to be a rock star. I'm going to write a book because I feel like I want to read this book. I want to put this out there. I felt passionate enough about it that I wanted to put a book out there that could help other guys, but also because I had to at least have the gumption, I guess, to think to myself, to have the arrogance to think that anybody else on planet fucking Earth would want to read what I have to say. And it turns out that they did. And it turns out that people also turn up to watch my show every Sunday, right? You have to have at least some sort of conceit, to say, if you be conceited enough to say, you know what, I think there are people out there who would want to listen to what I have to say. And that's really the first hurdle when it comes to anything that puts you in sort of the public eye, or even changing who you are as a person. If you want to decide, I'm going to be a different person, you have to be conceited enough to say, you know what, it's about me. Mental point of origin. It's not about, put yourself first. That's not what mental point of origin is. It's changing your mind to the point where when you're faced with a decision, you're the first thing that pops up in your head, not somebody else. And if you're trying to change your personality, if you're trying to change your life by whatever metric that is, you have to get to the point where you are important enough, and you could say selfish if you want, but I would say it's like enlightened self-interest, mental point of origin. You have to, at some point, give yourself permission to make that change in the first place. And that comes by saying, you know what? Fuck your rules. I got asthma. That's what
exactly.
You have to say, you know what? I'm done with this, and it's all about me at this point. And as a result, hopefully, other people will benefit as a result of that, and you will be a better judge as to who deserves your time and effort and energy.
I agree. Man, to change your identity, man, you got to put on the fucking cape. You just have to do it.
Take the glasses off.
Yeah, take the glasses off,
Put the cape on.
put the cape on, pop out that fucking phone booth and do work. You know what I'm saying? Bam! Yeah,
Develop options,
Yeah.
iron the fire, man.
yeah. So you
You
go
want to talk about making choices? You want to make better choices for yourself. You're going to have abundance. You're going to have to develop options. You're going to have to either get the skills to get to that, or you're going to have the balls. You're going to have the balls to go and make those decisions for yourself. So it's really about, if you want confidence, confidence is derived from options. You've got to have irons in the fire. You've got to spin plates. You've got to be able to go out there and fall flat on your face. I mean, find out what you're good at and what you're not good at. But you won't get to a point where you can make choices for yourself or have power over your life until you get to the point where you have options and you have irons in the fire and you decide who you want to be. And again, it comes down to permission. You've got to have the balls and you have to be conceited enough to say, you know what, this is where I'm going and this is what I want to be a rock star.
And that all starts with how you talk to yourself. And that way of talking to yourself is what's going to give you the confidence and the power to get going and get started. So
I have nothing more to add.
with that in mind, your guest host, Jay Waller. Gentlemen.
Time to go to dinner, I think.
Yep.
Yep, time for
Dinner.